Did you know all along that I could shed golden teardrops? Is that why you never wanted me to watch a sad movie or get hurt in any way? And another thing, what happened to the kidnappers? How did you manage to defeat them all and get past them to reach me? There were at least 6 of them, and they were all big, burly men. She still didn't say a word. She just carried on packing our things into bags. But I was determined to get some answers. Too much had happened in the last few weeks for me to just go along with what my grandma was telling me to do. Grandma, I am not going anywhere unless you explain to me exactly what is going on. And the first thing I want to know the answer to is, did you know that I could cry golden teardrops? Have you been stopping me from crying all of my life so that I wouldn't discover my ability? Grandma, I demand to know.
Okay, but wait until we get into the car. Once we are on our way, I promise I will explain everything.
Okay, but if you don't, then I'm not going anywhere with you.
I promise I will tell you everything you want to know.
What I'm about to tell you is going to shock you to the core, but it's nothing compared to what you will find out at the end of this story. I helped my grandma put our things into our car and we set off. At first, we just sat in silence, but when we had gotten some distance from our house, my grandma began to speak.
So you want to know the truth, do you?
Yes, I do.
Are you sure? Because you might not like what you hear.
I just need to know what's going on. Even if I don't like it, I need to know the truth.
Okay then, here goes. As you know, your parents were scientists.
Yes, I remember. You told me.
Well, what I didn't tell you was that your parents had been performing experiments on you. I'm not sure of all the details because they never explained it to me, but all I do know is that after they completed one experiment, your tears began to turn into gold drops.
But how? And why would they do something like that to their own child?
I'm sorry, I don't have those answers.
I just don't understand why my parents would want to do that to me.
I'm sorry, I have no idea why. When your parents died in the car crash, I decided that I would take you to live with me. I wanted to protect you. That's why I didn't want you to cry. I knew that if you cried, you would find out that your tears turned into gold.
You should have told me. I could have handled it.
Yes, now maybe, but not when you were little. I had to make sure you never cried because I was worried that the government might take you away from me. They might want to conduct all sorts of experiments on you. I couldn't let that happen.
I suppose I can understand if you put it like that.
And another thing, I was worried in case someone tried to kidnap you and use you to make them rich.
Well, you were right about that one. Someone did kidnap me, and all they wanted me to do every day was cry so that they could gather up my golden teardrops.
You see? That was exactly what I was worried about. I knew that people would become greedy if they knew what you were capable of.
As my grandma explained everything to me, I realized that her stopping me from crying and finding out about my gold tears was probably for the best. But one thing was still confusing me. But what I don't understand is how the kidnappers found out about me. You've done such a good job of keeping my secret safe. How on earth could they have known? My grandma opened her mouth to answer, but before she had a chance to speak, we were suddenly hit from behind by a speeding car. I felt my whole world spinning and turning over and over. I thought it was never gonna stop, but eventually the car came to a stop. I started groaning. Grandma, are you okay? There was no reply. Suddenly, through the dust, I saw 2 figures walking towards me. They reached out and picked me up. Grandma? There was no response. The next thing I knew, everything had gone black. I began to stir, my body ached, and my head was throbbing. As I blinked my eyes open, I realized that I was in a bed. But it wasn't my own bed. I had no idea where I was. I looked around the room, and suddenly I realized that there were pictures of me on the wall. Well, 3-year-old me. In some of the pictures, I was with a couple. They must be photos of me with my parents. I was so confused. Where am I? And where's Grandma? And why are all of these photos of me on the walls? I sat up in bed and was about to get up when the bedroom door opened. Standing there was a woman. She looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen her before. She came over to me and gave me a hug. There was something about her that made me feel safe. When she put her arms around me, my worries seemed to vanish.
Sarah, thank goodness you are safe now. You are home where you belong.
I had no idea what she was talking about, and how did she know my name? Before I could finish my sentence, a man had come into the room. There was something about him too. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I just knew that I had met him before. Where's my grandma? Is she okay? We had a car crash.
Oh, you mean that horrid woman? I certainly hope that she isn't okay.
What an awful thing to say. Why would you say that about my grandma?
You don't want anything more to do with that evil woman.
That's my grandma you're talking about, and she isn't evil. She's wonderful. She has done everything to make my life perfect.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're mistaken.
How would you know? You don't know anything about me.
Darling, we know everything about you.
How can you? It's the first time you've met me.
You had better let me explain.
Okay, go on then. I waited for the woman to speak, and she looked over at the man, took a deep breath, and began to speak.
The woman that you think is your grandma isn't really your grandma. She is a scientist. She performed an experiment on you and then kidnapped you. We are your real parents. We have searched far and wide to try and find you, but she was always one step ahead of us.
That was until recently when we made a discovery.
I looked at the man to see what he would say next.
We uncovered a hidden file that the woman had hidden at her old science laboratory. It was a file on you. It revealed all the experiments she had made on you and all the results. We found out that you can produce gold from tears. We did some further research and hired some private investigators to find you. It took them a while, but eventually they found you.
If that's the truth, why didn't they bring me to you?
As soon as they found out where you were, they suddenly stopped answering all our calls. We had no idea where you or they were. We were so worried about you.
Do you have photos of the investigators? The couple looked a bit confused.
Yes. I think we have copies of their ID cards. But why do you want to see them?
I don't know, it's just a hunch I have. The couple took out the photos and handed them to me. I was right. The investigators were the people who kidnapped me. I know these men.
What? So did they rescue you?
No, they did the complete opposite.
I don't understand.
They kidnapped me.
What?
They kidnapped me and kept me locked up. They made me cry every day to produce gold teardrops for them. They just wanted me to make them rich.
Oh my God, I can't believe it. This is all our fault. Honestly, we thought that they were trustworthy. We thought that they would just do the job we were paying them to do, to rescue you and bring you home to us.
I guess when they knew what you were capable of, the temptation for them to become rich was just too much.
I sat on the bed trying to process everything that they just told me. It was hard to take it all in. Had my grandma really been lying to me all of my life? And my parents? I had always thought that they had died in a car crash when I was very young, and now this couple were telling me that they were my real parents? And then the investigators turning out to be my kidnappers. Was nothing real in my life. And to top it all, I still had to deal with the fact that my tears turned into gold. The thoughts were turning over and over in my head when suddenly we heard an almighty crash. My parents and I ran to the bedroom window and looked outside. I couldn't believe the sight before me. A car had crashed into the front of the house and it burst into flames. We watched as the fire engulfed the car, and suddenly a figure emerged from the front of the car and looked up at us. Grandma! I have to help her.
No, you can't.
But what if she's hurt?
Remember what we said. That woman is not your grandma. She is very dangerous and evil. We have to get out of here.
But I mean, are you sure? Maybe you've made a mistake. Can't we at least talk to her?
No, that would be the worst thing we could do. You have to trust us. Why would we lie to you? We're your parents, aren't we?
I was so confused at that point. I didn't know whether to believe this couple that I had only just met, or the woman who had brought me up. I really wanted to believe my grandma. She was the one that I had known all of my life. Surely, if she had been dangerous, I would have known.
Come on, we need to go downstairs and get out through the back of the house.
I hesitated for a few seconds.
Come on, we don't have time to waste.
I decided that I would go along with what they were saying. At least until I had time to work out for myself who was telling the truth. If it turned out that this couple were really the ones who had done the experiment on me, it wouldn't be wise to make them angry. I would just have to let them think that I believed what they were saying, and that I was going along with them. I followed them down the stairs and through the kitchen. But when they opened the back door, we were shocked to see my grandma was standing there.
Sarah, are you okay? What have they done to you?
I looked at my grandma to my parents and back again. My parents looked scared to death. They grabbed me by the hand and pulled me out the door, pushing my grandma out of the way.
Quick, run! We have to get away from her!
I started to run through the garden, but then I heard a scream from behind me. When I turned to see what was going on, I nearly passed out with shock. My grandma and my parents were having a full-on kung fu fight. Bam! Bam! Kapow! I watched as my grandma threw a punch and it landed straight on my dad's chin. He went flying through the air and landed at the other side of the garden. But in the next second, my mom caught my grandma with a flying kick straight in the stomach. I winced as I saw the look on my grandma's face as she fell winded to the ground. No, stop! Please, all of you, stop fighting! They all stopped fighting and looked in my direction. I thought that it would be the end of the fight, but I was wrong. My grandma jumped back and pounced on my mom. They started rolling around and around on the floor, lashing out at each other as they went. Then, my dad came running over to join in again. He grabbed hold of my grandma and pulled her off my mom's back. They were all throwing punches and kicks left, right, and center. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there, frozen to the spot, my mind in turmoil. This can't be happening. How on earth am I gonna work out who to believe? Are you as confused as I was? Well, make sure to tune in for the third and final episode if you want to find out who was telling the truth.